The Iron Gate of Ossining. For nearly 2 centuries, the name Sing Sing has whispered one promise: if you go in, you might never come out alive. The Hudson River glimmers just beyond the walls, calm and cold. Every dawn, its mist rises over the village of Ossining, wrapping the prison like smoke from a ghost that never left. Locals still say that when the wind is right, you can hear the echo of the old electric chair, the machine that ended more than 600 lives inside this place. Sing Sing Correctional Facility, established in 1825, isn't just a prison, it's a mirror of American justice itself. Brick by brick, it was built by the men it would later confine. Inmates quarried limestone from the nearby cliffs, dragging each block up the riverbank by hand. The name Sing Sing came from the Sing Sing tribe that once inhabited the area. Translated loosely, it means stone upon stone. That's fitting. Because inside these walls, stone was never just structure, it was punishment. The birth of the fortress. When Sing Sing first opened, it was a revolution in design. The Auburn system of silence and isolation dictated every moment of life inside. Prisoners marched in lockstep, eyes down, hands at their sides, forbidden from speaking even a word. The warden at the time, Elam Linz, believed that silence broke the soul faster than chains ever could. According to New York State Archives, Linz once wrote that speech is the mother of rebellion. So he banned it completely. The men worked in silence, ate in silence, slept in silence. Even their punishments, whippings, cold cells, deprivation, were carried out without a word. By 1830, newspapers were calling Sing Sing the living tomb. It wasn't hyperbole. Conditions were so severe that several early wardens faced investigations by reform societies. But public opinion was ruthless. Americans believed crime required cruelty. Sing Sing became both deterrent and spectacle. Visitors paid to tour the prison and watch inmates labor in factories. The state sold the goods they made: furniture, shoes, and ironwork. Crime, once a moral sin, had become profitable. By the late 19th century, Sing Sing was a symbol of modern punishment, a fortress that balanced industry with fear. But beneath the progress was an unspoken rule: rehabilitation was secondary to obedience. The chair that ended hope. In 1891, a new invention arrived at Sing Sing, the electric chair, replacing the gallows as the state's chosen method of execution. It was meant to be more humane, more scientific. It wasn't. The first man executed here, William Kemmler, convulsed for nearly a minute as smoke rose from his head. Witnesses vomited. Newspapers described it as a spectacle of horror. But the state defended it as progress. From that day on, the death house at Sing Sing became infamous. More than 600 men and women would die there, among them Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, executed in 1953 for espionage during the Cold War. Their deaths made global headlines, sparking debates over justice, fear, and ideology that still echo today. A 1953 New York Times editorial wrote, "Sing Sing is no longer merely a prison, it is a reflection of America's conscience." But inside those walls, conscience didn't count for much. The executions were routine, carried out on Thursday nights. Guards called them midnight shows. Inmates called the electric chair Old Sparky. Its hum could be heard through the blocks, cutting across silence like thunder before a storm. And yet, in a strange way, the executions unified the population. Every man in Sing Sing learned the same lesson. If the state could kill, so could they. The gangs that survived the silence. By the 1920s, prohibition and organized crime reshaped the prison's social order. Sing Sing became home to gangland royalty: Charles Lucky Luciano, Louis Lepke Buckleter, Dutch Schultz, names that carried more weight than any warden's badge. According to state archives and FBI records, these men imported the rules of the street into the cell block. Loyalty. Territory. Fear. In a place designed to crush individuality, they built hierarchy instead. Each tier of the cell block mirrored a mafia family structure: captains, soldiers, enforcers. Guards soon realized they couldn't control Sing Sing through silence anymore. The gangs had learned to weaponize it. By mid-century, African American and Latino inmates formed their own protection groups, both cultural and strategic. The 5%ers, Latin Kings, and bloodline sects began their rise in the 1960s and 70s. As prison populations swelled, alliances became survival. Race dictated everything, said one former corrections officer in a 1988 interview with The Village Voice. The cafeteria was a map. If you sat at the wrong table, you didn't get up. Sing Sing, once ruled by discipline, was now ruled by organization. Each gang had its own code. Its own justice. Disputes were settled with blades hidden in toothbrushes, or with fists during lights out. Control was traded daily, sometimes through violence, sometimes through respect. By the 1990s, the facility's internal structure resembled a city-state. Drugs flowed in through corrupt staff. Contraband phones ran underground networks. Guards became negotiators as much as enforcers. One former inmate described it best. There are three governments in Sing Sing: the state, the staff, and the street. The House of Stories. Despite its brutality, Sing Sing also became a crucible for change. Journalists, lawyers, and reformers began visiting in the 20th century, drawn by its contradictions. Behind the bars that once silenced men, voices began to emerge, writing, painting, testifying. In 1972, Sing Sing launched its first college education program in partnership with Mercy College. Graduates would go on to become paralegals, artists, and community leaders upon release. The same walls that once held the Rosenbergs and Albert Fish were now home to professors teaching Shakespeare to lifers. But progress was fragile. Funding cuts, riots, and scandals often followed reform. Every step forward came with 2 steps back into the same cycle: overcrowding, violence, and fear. Even today, according to New York State DOC data, Sing Sing houses more than 1,500 inmates, including some of the most violent offenders in the Northeast. The electric chair is gone, replaced by the hum of fluorescent lights, but the ghosts remain. Guards still talk about feeling the pressure of the walls, a strange anxiety that settles after years of service. Some call it the awesomeing weight. At sunset, the Hudson turns gold, reflecting off the cell windows. From inside, it looks like freedom, but it's just a trick of light. Every brick, every corridor, every scar in Sing Sing carries a memory of death, of control, of men who learned to rule even when they couldn't run. This is where America's punishment industry was born, and where its ghosts still keep count. Because in Sing Sing, history doesn't die. It just gets transferred to the next cell. The Silent Empire. The air inside Sing Sing doesn't move. It hums, like a generator that never stops. Every clang of the steel door echoes through concrete corridors that have outlived generations of men. The walls don't just hold inmates, they absorb them. By the time the sun touches the Hudson, the cell blocks begin to vibrate with their own kind of life: shouts, codes, laughter, and prayers all merging into one rhythm. For nearly 2 centuries, this fortress has been called many things: the castle on the Hudson, the big house, the last stop. But inside, it has another name whispered among the men who live here. The Silent Empire. The evolution of control. By the early 2000s, Sing Sing had transformed from the brutal, silent hell of the 19th century into something far more complex, a microcosm of the outside world, running under its own unspoken laws. Officially, the Department of Corrections calls it a correctional facility. Unofficially, it's a machine fueled by hierarchy. According to New York State DOC reports, Sing Sing's inmate population sits around 1,500 men. That may sound small compared to other state prisons, but its history gives it weight. It's a facility where lifers and short-timers coexist, killers sharing cells with low-level dealers, all trapped in the same unforgiving rhythm. Over time, the gangs learned to rule what the guards couldn't. The Bloods, Latin Kings, Nitas, and Trinitarios became the invisible governments of the blocks. They control the flow of contraband, the peace between races, and even who gets to speak in certain tiers. In Sing Sing, silence is no longer enforced, it's negotiated. An anonymous corrections officer interviewed by the New York Post in 2017 described it this way. The state runs the paperwork. The gangs run the floor. The New York bloodline. The Bloods dominate the younger population, their red bandanas folded into waistbands, their codes painted on notebook covers. But unlike the chaos of street sets, prison Bloods operate with military discipline. Each block has a keyholder, responsible for all communications. Orders come down through folded notes, kites, passed in meal trays or tucked into legal mail. Their rivals, the Trinitarios, mostly of Dominican origin, rule the upper tiers. They trade in phones, Suboxone strips, and favors. In Sing Sing, they're known for intelligence, not numbers. Their hierarchy mirrors that of an army, strict, structured, efficient. The Latin kings control the commissary economy, instant coffee, tuna packs, cigarettes. Their influence bleeds into every dorm because everyone, even the toughest lifer, needs something only the kings can get. And then there's the nation of gods and earths, the 5%ers, who reject all of it. They're philosophers in a place that kills thinking. They hold classes in the yard, teaching younger inmates about self-knowledge and survival. The administration views them cautiously, not as a gang, but as a movement. Inside Sing Sing, knowledge is another form of power, and sometimes, just as dangerous as a weapon. The currency of power. Money doesn't exist here, but commerce never died. A bar of soap can buy a favor. A postage stamp can buy silence. The real currency, though, is contraband, phones, drugs, and information. Cell phones are lifelines. They arrive through corrupt staff, visitors, and delivery contractors. One investigative report by the Journal News in 2019 revealed that contraband phones were found in nearly every major raid, some hidden inside legal folders, others buried in ceiling vents. For a high-ranking gang member, a working cell phone is worth more than protection, it's control. Through that small piece of metal, they manage outside connections, coordinate transactions, and even issue orders to crews on the streets of the Bronx or Yonkers. According to FBI testimony in U.S. v. Lopez, 2019, investigators traced calls from inside Sing Sing directly to shootings in New York City, evidence of how the lines between prison and street blurred long ago. The code of the guards. The officers who work here walk a razor's edge between authority and fear. Starting salaries hover just above $47,000 a year, and turnover is constant. Many guards come from the same towns that fear Sing Sing's shadow. Some have relatives inside. The official rulebook says, no fraternization. Reality says, survival first. Guards know which gang controls which block. They know when tension is rising, you can feel it before it happens. A sudden quiet in the yard, a missing broom handle, a glance that lasts too long. When the storm breaks, it's fast. No warning, no mercy. In 2015, a massive lockdown followed a violent fight in the North Wing, multiple stabbings, one guard hospitalized. Official statements called it an isolated incident. But insiders said it was a turf war over the right to distribute synthetic marijuana. The truth, as always, was buried under paperwork. Guards learn early that power isn't uniform deep. It's negotiated day by day, with every handshake, every cell search, every blind eye turned for peace's sake. As one retired sergeant told the Albany Times-Union, if you make enemies out of all the gangs, you don't go home safe. It's that simple. The education of survival. Even in its darkness, Sing Sing has moments of light. The Hudson Link for Higher Education program, started in 1998, gives inmates access to college degrees. Men once labeled hopeless now debate ethics and history in classrooms built inside old workshop spaces. Professors from local universities travel up the river every week, teaching literature, law, and sociology to men who might never walk free. The irony isn't lost on anyone, the same institution that once executed the condemned now hands out diplomas. One graduate, speaking anonymously in a 2021 interview with The Guardian, said, Sing Sing made me dangerous. Education made me human again. Even so, not everyone gets that chance. Gangs often control access to safe programs. If you owe money or disrespect a shot caller, you might be barred from classes or visitation. Redemption, like everything else here, is a privilege earned through politics. The sound of the yard. At 3 p.m., the yard opens. Hundreds of men flood into a space the size of a football field, concrete, fences, and the river's faint glimmer beyond the wall. This is where alliances are tested and messages are sent. The soundscape is surreal, basketballs echoing against steel, radios playing faint hip-hop, the soft hum of conversations that can change lives or end them. To outsiders, it looks calm. But to anyone who's lived here long enough, the yard is the stock exchange of survival. Every handshake is a contract. Every nod, a warning. A glance from the wrong man can spark lockdown for days. The tension is constant, invisible, almost holy in its precision. As one inmate once wrote in a letter seized by DOC investigators, Sing Sing don't sleep. It just holds its breath until the next man bleeds. Echoes of legacy. From the outside, Sing Sing is an aging fortress, soon to be replaced, according to state plans, by a modern facility. But inside, it's eternal. Every cell still hums with the echoes of its history, the executions, the riots, the whispered codes of power. Guards say that when they walk the East Block at night, they feel eyes on them from the old death house, even though it's been empty for years. Superstition, maybe. Or just the weight of memory that 200 years can't wash away. The men inside don't talk about ghosts. They just say the past never left. Because Sing Sing isn't just a prison. It's a system within a system, an empire of silence that runs itself, through fear, through order, through the strange and unbreakable rhythm of human adaptation. And even now, in an age of reform and technology, one truth still defines the place. No one controls Sing Sing. It only allows you to think you do. The fall of the fortress. When a place has caged men for 2 centuries, its walls become more than stone, they become memory. Sing Sing remembers everything, the hum of the electric chair, the silence of the Auburn system, the blood on the yard. But by the 21st century, the fortress that once defined punishment in America was beginning to crack. Not from riots. From time. A prison of history. The state of New York had tried for decades to modernize Sing Sing. Each new warden promised reform, new programs, cleaner cells, better oversight. But reform never lasts long inside a machine designed for control. By 2010, according to Department of Corrections records, the prison still held more than 1,600 inmates in structures built before the Civil War. The oldest cell blocks, known as the houses, leaned with age, their iron bars rusted thin. Water leaked from the ceilings, rats nested in the heating ducts. Guards joked that the only thing keeping Sing Sing standing was tradition. Public tours showed a different picture. Historical exhibits, an empty execution chamber, displays about rehabilitation. But behind the museum glass, the old system still pulsed, overcrowded dorms, racial tension, a shadow economy that kept order when policy failed. The illusion of reform. In 2016, Governor Andrew Cuomo announced plans to close Sing Sing's death house and transform part of the prison into a museum of criminal justice. The media hailed it as a symbolic victory for progress. But inside, the men laughed. Turn it into a museum, one inmate told the Journal News. We're the exhibits already. Programs did expand, college classes through Hudson Link, therapy groups, job training in carpentry and horticulture. On paper, it looked like a new era. In practice, gangs adapted faster than policy. The same networks that once smuggled heroin now trafficked synthetic drugs and prepaid phone cards. The old mafia codes were replaced by digital ones. Officers confiscated cell phones weekly. Each device held fragments of an invisible world, text messages, Cash App screenshots, maps of street operations. Sing Sing security staff, already underpaid and overworked, became cyber police without training. They seized technology faster than they could understand it. In 2018, a state audit revealed that contraband phones were being used to coordinate crimes outside the prison, including robbery plots and witness intimidation. The warden at the time called it a new frontier of control. Privately, officers admitted they were losing the frontier entirely. The psychological war. What no one outside the walls sees is the toll that control takes on the people who enforce it. Guards at Sing Sing experience some of the highest burnout and PTSD rates in the state system. A 2019 internal survey by the Correctional Officers Union reported that more than half suffered from sleep disorders or anxiety. One veteran officer described it bluntly. You go home and still hear the doors slam in your head. For inmates, the pressure is constant, invisible. The older lifers act as mentors, the younger ones arrive angry, wired from the streets. Every insult, every look, can become a test. Mental health services exist, one counselor for hundreds of men. Suicide attempts spike after lockdowns. A 2020 Watchdog report documented multiple self-harm incidents in a single month, most from inmates placed in solitary confinement for nonviolent infractions. Isolation may have changed names since the days of the Auburn system, but it hasn't changed effect. The walls still whisper, and too many men still answer. Corruption and collapse. Every great empire falls the same way, from within. In 2021, an investigative piece by the New York Times exposed widespread misconduct at Sing Sing, falsified overtime, smuggled goods, and cover-ups of inmate assaults. Several officers were indicted, others quietly transferred. The report quoted one state investigator saying, "The problem isn't the bad apples, it's the orchard." That same year, New York State began exploring plans to decommission parts of the prison entirely. For the first time in its history, Sing Sing's closure seemed possible. Activists pushed to preserve it as a memorial to mass incarceration. Corrections officials feared losing one of the system's oldest facilities of containment. Inside, rumors spread like smoke. If Sing Sing closed, lifers would be moved upstate, farther from families, deeper into isolation. For them, the fall of the fortress wasn't freedom, it was exile. The last executioner's shadow. The old death house still stands, locked behind a heavy iron door. Visitors sometimes ask to see Old Sparky. Guides tell them the chair was removed decades ago. What they don't mention is that the floor still bears burn marks. The wood has been sanded and sealed, but the stains never faded. Former chaplain Reverend Edward Daly once said, "Every execution left a scar on this building. You can scrub the floors, but you can't wash away the memory." That memory still governs Sing Sing's identity. Even without executions, it remains synonymous with death, the slow, administrative kind that stretches over decades. The electric chair may be gone, but the current still runs through policy, through confinement, through history itself. The future in ruins. In 2023, New York approved funding to build a new maximum security facility elsewhere, signaling that Sing Sing's operational days were numbered. But no one knows what that really means. Local residents fear economic collapse. The prison employs hundreds in Ossining. Preservationists want to turn the complex into a museum and memorial. Former inmates call for it to be demolished entirely, so the ghosts can rest. Inside, the men just keep moving through routine. Count, chow, lock in. The end of Sing Sing is another rumor in a place built from them. As one lifer told a visiting journalist, "They can close the gates, rename the place, tear it down if they want. But the idea of Sing Sing, that never dies. Every new prison they build carries its DNA." Epilogue, the mirror of justice. The sun sets over the Hudson, painting the water the color of rust. From the watchtower, the view is almost beautiful, the same view guards and inmates have shared for generations. The same light that once shone on executions now glints off security cameras. Justice has evolved, they say. But here, at the end of America's oldest corridor of punishment, it's clear that evolution is just repetition with better lighting. Because Sing Sing was never just a place. It was a philosophy carved into stone, that order must come before mercy, and silence is safer than change. Now, as its walls crumble and its legends fade, one truth remains unbroken. The fortress didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it was too strong for too long. Disclaimer. This story is a dramatized adaptation inspired by real events. Some names, places, and details have been changed for privacy. All historical and legal references are drawn from verified public records, court filings, Department of Corrections data, watchdog reports, and reputable sources including the New York Times, the Journal News, Albany Times Union, and the New York State Archives.